This episode of Rock and Roll Icons is brought to you by Dental Implants GPS. If you're having issues with your teeth that are extensive and you need full mouth Dental Implants GPS is the best in the business. Dentures simply are not cool. They're a hassle, pull them in and out, cleaning them, they suck. You need to go to Dental Implants GPS for the finest care you'll ever get from Dr. Baker and his staff. If you mention my name, Bodie James, you're going to get a Philips Sonicare professional teeth cleaning system, only to listeners of the Rock and Roll Icons radio show. Dental Implants GPS can be reached at 949-381-5418. Their pricing's fantastic. Their service, their care, everything is top drawer. Again, their number is 949-381-5418. Don't wait. Hesitate not. Call them today. Yeah. Welcome to another episode of Rock and Roll Icons. I'm your host, Bodie James, coming to you from Redemption Studios in Big Bear Lake, California.
Oh, Big Bear. Oh, yeah.
Big Bear, yeah. I
like that.
I'm blessed today. I have a guy who is part of the fabric of America, Mr. Don Mclean. How are you, sir?
Well, I'm fine. And I've played Big Bear a couple of times. And one time was a tent show, and I met Robert Conrad.
Wow.
Yeah, he lived out there. And this is before he had his car accident, unfortunately. But yeah, that was fun. I remember that. And I love that, like those kind of places. I really do.
Well, it's a wonderful place. Have you played the Cave? Is that another spot that you were at?
I have. I believe I have.
What a great room, huh?
Oh, that was a kick-ass rock and roll show we did there. The audience was terrific.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, it's one of the nicest rooms in the country. Acoustically perfect, and it's just amazing.
I know. Yeah. You know, that's the thing. I missed that. This last year I've been home, and usually I'm in constant motion since 1968. Wow. I've never taken a year off. I've always been doing whatever I could. You know, sometimes there would be 40 gigs, sometimes there'd be 120 gigs, you know, but I was always busy making records, writing songs, doing shows, promoting them, this, that, and the other. And now I'm home for this last year, and I'm loving it because I'm focusing on a lot of things that I haven't been able to do before. I've got this much improved internet presence now with the YouTube channel that we have, and I'm doing a lot of things on that channel. We've uploaded 11 albums and 173 tracks. Wow. Which I own. Mm-hmm. And we're finding things like Israeli documentary movies that I made, and you know, things that I did in Australia, things that I did in Ireland, and so on. And now I have a receptacle for this, you know, and I'm building on it, and it's leading to many other things, so that when I go back on the road, that stuff will keep going.
Oh, that's phenomenal. I haven't had a chance to check that out. I'm going to have to do that.
Yeah, you'd like that. There's some stuff about how I play the guitar and the things that I do and the way I sing and how I play the guitar and how my singing works with the guitar playing. It's 50 years of doing this, and I've learned a few things, and I've put them on there in a way that's shows you how I'm doing it when I'm doing it, rather than, you know, well, hammer down here, you know, and play this chord there. It's very boring, you know, but here you see me doing it, and simple songs that you can sort of get with.
I like it. Well, I tell you, I heard you've got a new release. February 3rd marks 62 years since the plane crash that killed Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, the Big Bopper, and the often forgotten Roger Peterson. And you've re-recorded American Pie, and I got to tell you, the new version gives me the same chills up and down my spine that the original did.
Well, it works, doesn't it? You know, and there's no musical instruments on that but voices.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of that. Rather, you know, I cut the song again, and you can't even tell the difference. Well, you can, but I mean, not much. No. 10 years later, and there's several versions through the years, live versions of me doing this song, of course. But when the opportunity came to work with these guys, I think of them as kids, really. I heard that there's a growing love of a cappella singing with young people, and that encouraged me because I sang with the Jordanaires. I took the Persuasions on the road. I love that kind of stuff, and so they did a very good job. And people have not said to me, well, why'd you do that? Or one of those kind of things where they hate it.
Mhm.
They genuinely like it, so I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of a doo-wop and barbershop feel to it, and I'm hoping that younger people, because I'm 60 years old almost myself, so younger people, I've got an 18-year-old. I'm hoping they kind of discover that through your new release.
Well, that's what Madonna did for the song in the year 2000. Her recording the song and putting it in her movie, The Next Best Thing. So every now and then when Garth Brooks brought me out in Central Park in 1997, it was
Yeah.
he and me, him and me, him and I. Oh, well, anyway, it was that clip that went around the world, the two of us doing the chorus and the song
Yeah.
together. So every once in a while, there's something that gives the song a jolt, and then all the young kids discover it. And then the old folks say, well, we know that song, and this thing starts all over again. So,
Yeah. I know there's always a disconnect between me and my 18-year-old on music. But on
yeah,
this particular song, he knows all the lyrics.
yeah.
It's just, it just continues to grow.
Well, it's amazing how we forget things, I mean,
Yeah.
there are a lot of young people who don't know the Beatles. There are a lot of young people, but they all know Elvis. I
Yep.
think Elvis
That,
has this thing. I don't know, he did everything wrong, but, it turned out right.
that is so true.
You know
Well,
that, the producers with Zero Mostel, he said, the story of the producers, right? He gets
huh?
a play that's bound to fail so that he can take all the money that he invested and keep it. And he says, and it becomes the hit. So he says, well, I had the wrong actor. I had the wrong play. I had everything. Where did I go right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly.
and it's the
Exactly.
same with Elvis, I mean, half the songs were awful, and the movies were terrible. By God, he's Elvis Presley.
That's right, man. There's no getting around it. Well, tell me something. In 71, when American Pie was released, 70 and 71 were really tumultuous years in our nation's history.
They were.
Do you see a pattern where we're revisiting that now in a way?
Well, it will depend on how decadent we are.
Okay.
We were much less decadent then. We were more moralistic. We were more, I want the truth.
Mm-hmm.
We had been shocked by the Kennedy assassination. Young people who knew anything and who read Mark Lane's book, Rush to Judgment, all knew that it was a state crime.
Right.
Everybody knew that who knew anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the beginning. And then the Vietnam thing kept going, and the lies, and Lyndon Johnson, and the hatred. Nothing like Trump is nothing like Johnson or Nixon, the hatred for
No.
those two guys. So I think we're quite a decadent nation now, and I don't think that a lot of the younger people are willing to get their heads cracked open and go to jail for 10 years. I noticed the minute that they said you're going to go to jail for 10 years if you knock over a statue or you do whatever, statues stopped getting knocked over.
Yeah,
That would not happen in the 60s.
that is so true.
So I think it's the desire is there, but I think we are a decadent country. There's a lot of dry rot in this country, and it ain't the same country as it once was. It's also twice as big. We had only 175 million people in the United States when John Kennedy was president. We have 360 million now.
Yeah.
So it's a lot bigger country, and things are easily forgotten. I don't think I don't know. There's a lot of, you know, a lot of what I hear is an example of people almost acting like Joseph McCarthy. In here's how I think this way. McCarthy was losing, and all of a sudden he was in a woman's meeting and he held up a paper and it said, I have the name of 200 communists that are in the army, and blah blah blah. All of a sudden that got going, he got elected like that. So he hit a vein,
Yeah.
and that was the Red Scare of the 50s. Okay, yeah, I think you've got some people like that in Congress now, who are saying, oh, make America a socialist, da, 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 and everybody says, yeah, we want something for nothing, and we'll vote for you,
Hmm.
but that's not how economics works. Economics are like physics. We cannot keep printing money. I'm a finance major in college. I have a degree in finance. I went to college for this, and I never thought I'd use it, but I'm always using it. I'm
Yeah.
seeing what's going on because it's, you can't kid uh, the economy by printing this money and preventing and thinking you're not going to end up with a terrible disaster economically down the road somewhere. And I know we're doing this because we're desperate to get out ahead of this pandemic.
Yeah.
But it just shows you how desperate we are to print $6 trillion in the matter of a year, which is 3 times the old national debt in a
Yep.
year, just trying to buy some time. That's
Right.
desperate. And that
Yep.
shows you how dangerous this is.
Yeah, it's I had never imagined that the disarray could be what it is now. Kevin Godley and I were speaking the other day and reminiscing on the fact that neither one of us think that the lessons that we should have learned from Martin Luther King actually resonated. We seem to have lost our focus on treating people nicely and doing the right thing. It's mystifying to me.
Well, I don't know if this is the right place to say this, but I think that we are disrespecting an enormous number of accomplished Black men and women who have come up since the 1960s and who are lawyers and doctors and governors and heads of businesses and heads of the police and heads of this department and that department. Everywhere you look, they're there doing a great job, and we're calling America racist. I mean, this isn't a matter of that. What these people are saying is that you're not left wing enough.
Yeah.
We don't care what color you are. Obama's not left wing enough. To them, Obama's white.
Hmm.
And I don't like that. I lived through that because I was with people in the 1960s who were communists, basically. I mean, I love the Weavers and Seeger and all that. And I got very close to that, and I was in the middle of that whole thing. You talk about the way the country was in 1970 and 71. That's when the Vietnam War was at its white hot.
Yeah.
People think it's the 60s, but it isn't.
No.
When I was about to be drafted in 1969, I was the only guy that went home on the bus alone because of asthma. But I would have gone right into combat at that point in 1969. And it just kept getting worse, 70, 71. And then Nixon got elected by a landslide, but he'd already sowed the seeds to his own destruction with the breaking into the Watergate.
Yeah.
And yet nobody wants to say, I don't know why I'm going on like this. I hope you don't mind.
No, not at all. It's fascinating. I like it.
Okay. But the thing that nobody ever asked these questions is, why did all the burglars in the Watergate have connections to the Bay of Pigs? Frank Martinez, McCord, Howard Hunt, all these people. This is because it's still connected to trying to cover up the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah.
This is never been properly looked at, but there's so many people who've devoted their lives. But I'll tell you that on the internet, for people who are into this and interested, E. Howard Hunt, who received $1 million in hush money from the Nixon administration and who ran the plumbers, as they were called, admits on his deathbed that he was part of the Kennedy assassination team and tells all about it. He does an interview with his son named St. James
Mhm.
Hunt, and you can look that up. Look up St.
Yeah,
You know,
fascinating.
yeah, E. Howard Hunt, St. James Hunt interview. Listen to him talk about it,
Interesting.
because it's right in front of us now. The people are telling us stuff now, but they've been so good at paving over everything, and I think anybody who says it was a conspiracy is a nutcase.
Yeah.
That the true people who were involved are saying this stuff and nobody's listening. So look that up on YouTube and you'll see it.
Yeah, that's a good point. February of '59 was a very interesting month. People, the fact that our three musical heroes were killed, people don't remember that 13 days later, Fidel Castro came into power in Cuba.
Wow. A
Very
lot of
important.
things were happening.
They were. It was, there was just so many things that were transformational, in that time period.
And you didn't, as somebody, I'm an instinctive person. I'm not really, I know a lot of things, and I connect a lot of things in my head for the purposes of what I do. And I'm always learning things and interested in so many things. But you could sense that something was afoot. And I think the Buddy's death and that whole thing, the way that happened, and then what you say, and then Kennedy getting elected, and then other things happening, and then his assassination, and then we were really down the rabbit hole when that happened.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've ever come out of it, frankly.
I think you're right. Well, let me get back to the song. I could talk with you for hours, but I've only got another 15 minutes.
Well, what I just said has to do with American Pie.
Yeah, it does.
The rabbit hole that we went down is also what inspired me to think the way I thought of America, which was as a kind of almost a death trip.
Yeah. Yeah, I know you've been quoted as saying it wasn't just so much about Buddy Holly as it was about the fabric of America at the time.
All these things that were happening, these assassinations that Hoover was behind, and he was behind all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And we still have a building named after him, the FBI uses.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an outrage.
Yes.
But, these were things they thought. This is a thing about the Bushes and the Clintons and all these people. They hand to go, oh, the country's with us now. You have it for a while. Give it back to us. Okay. And Obama got in there and took it away from both of them, which I thought was great.
Yep.
But then Trump came in and took it away from all three of them. So you never know what the people are going to do. They get tired of all that stuff.
Yeah.
And, now we've got Biden, which actually I think it's nice to have some peace and quiet. And I think it's good. We need to get healed up, I think, from the last 4 years.
I think we do too. I was going to ask you, with American Pie, it was risky writing a song that length. In fact, it was a split side single, which was practically unheard of. Is that when you wrote it, were you anticipating it getting the kind of exposure that it did?
I didn't know anything. I just knew I had a story to tell and I wanted to tell it, and I had to go until it was finished. And we rehearsed that song quite a bit, and none of the musicians really ever understood it, and it never sounded right to me.
Mm-hmm.
And only when Paul Griffin, piano player, came in, who was a gospel player as well as a great player in all areas, he jumped all over it because he heard my guitar in his headphones, and there was no doubt of where this thing was going. He knew what it was, but the other guys, who have been on the record, really never had a clue. Yeah. And I got to tell you, that's the truth. And then we had the feel that we wanted, and that was what you have to have a record. You have to have a hit record in order for that's the vehicle that sends out the song. If you don't, I bet you there's a lot of songs that treated a different way, would have been monumental, but never were because they made the wrong record. You
Mhm.
can listen to Buddy Holly, his work that he did in Nashville. That'll Be the Day just lays there. It's nothing. Then
Yeah.
he goes to New Mexico and makes the hit record of it.
Mhm.
Well, that's the difference,
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I know on the same album, the song Vincent is another one that just really has a life of its own. It keeps going. It's
Well,
timely and out of the decade.
that was me and guitar only.
Uh-huh.
That's what I actually, American Pie really was me and guitar only too, because Paul understood the guitar. Me and my guitar are really what has fueled everything, in the relationship that I have to it. So that I'm singing that song virtually solo until the vibes come in the middle, and then the strings come in at the very end. He was Ed Freeman, who produced these tracks, American Pie and Vincent, was very sparse and I thought very tasteful.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a beautiful song. And I know that my 32-year-old son told me last night when I was mentioning I was going to be talking with you, he said, "Tell Mr. McLean that it's because of him that my love of art developed."
Thank him for thank him from me for that. I really appreciate that, and it keeps me going. Stories like this makes me happy
Mhm.
that I did what I did with my life, and I really wanted to give something to people. You know, you go in the professions, you go, well, you're an accountant, you tell somebody, oh, I'm sorry, you're bankrupt, or you're a lawyer, you tell them, sorry, you're getting sued, or somebody, or you're evicted, or somebody else, well, I'm a doctor, well, you have cancer, I'm sorry. I didn't want to do that. You know, I wanted to create a world. My friend Lee Hayes used to say that Walt Whitman would say, the artist finding no sphere worthy creates one.
I
So I
like that.
created my own sphere. I invented Don McLean, and I invented the songs he sings, and I invented everything because it was fun and because I wanted to give that, to people. And every artist does that.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of songwriters, but you are a poet in my book, and I think there's a difference.
Well, I don't think that poetry is around anymore in songwriting, from what I hear.
Yeah.
I don't think that people understand the syntax really of language and of sentence structure,
No.
and they don't sit back and say, they basically blow out some bullshit and put some kind of repetitive thing to it, and they don't really realize that they don't, it's like they don't understand how to use the language, which is what poetry is. A lot of what has made American Pie famous has been the poetry of it, the way it's embedded in the music poetically. Um, and I do that in a very specific way of everything I do. So I value the use of words. I'm always looking up words all the time on my phone,
Mhm.
or sayings. I'll say something. So what the heck do I mean by that? I'm going to find out.
I like that. Well, I've got just a couple minutes left with you. I know that you have a concert set for February 3rd at the Surf Ballroom. Is that still going to happen?
No,
Okay.
everything's been moved from the Surf Ballroom. They had to move everything to different time periods. So as long as this COVID wave is still rolling, it's washing out
Yeah.
everything in its path as it moves.
Yeah.
And the question is, what kind of an answer to it is we're going to have at what point, and what we're going to have left when the tide, you know, moves back.
Yeah. I was hoping it was going to be a live stream. That was something I was really hoping was going to happen on the 3rd.
I wasn't presented me. That wasn't presented to me.
Yeah.
I wait for people to tell me what they'd like to do. People that I work with, well, so-and-so would like to do it. I'd do it. I'd be happy to do
Yeah.
it.
Well, I know that in 2020, you signed with Time Life and they are distributing your entire catalog, including still playing favorites.
Yeah.
What's next for you?
Well, I have a new album that I've written while I've been home here, of a dozen things, and it's called American Boys. American Boys invented rock and roll, and it's a fun song. My guitar player and I wrote, and that's the primary song, and then everything else. There's a whole lot of other songs on there. Then you're gonna, I think there are a number of very, very nice things. It's a good record. I'm looking forward. I'm working on it right now. I'm going to have my producer fly out to California and do the vocals and put my guitar on a bunch of things. It'll be 2 or 3 days of working all the time on it.
Oh, fantastic. Well, if people want to visit your website, what's the address for that?
Well, you can just go to anything. You can look up Don McLean YouTube. You can look up donmclean.com. You can look up americanpie.com. I mean, you'll come to a lot of Don McLean. I mean, I'm all over the place.
All roads lead to Don McLean. Mr. McLean, thank you for your generosity, and I hope you'll come back again when we can spend more time. I've really enjoyed this.
Yes, we'll do that. I like talking to you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.